Welcome back to another episode of Lobby Concessionals, the movie podcast where nobody's right and everybody's wrong. I'm Parker, that's Brendan. If you guys are happy with what we're putting out, feel free to like and subscribe, follow us along. We're putting up stuff twice a week, assuming I don't burn out and run out of cool things to talk about, which doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. Yeah, today we wanted to talk a little bit about, speaking of burning out. Wow,
well done.
I kind of nailed that. I didn't even mean to.
Well done.
Speaking of burning out, we want to talk a little bit today about franchise exhaustion. Specifically, sort of the not finding original films anymore, or there's less of it. There's a lot of franchises out there. And the franchise dominance in movies. I'm not feeling this as personally, but Brendan, you've mentioned in the past, we've mentioned on this show, you're kind of feeling the burnout. Do you want to give us some thoughts, riff on that?
Yeah, and it's not. I don't want to. It is franchise burnout, but to be very, very clear, it is AAA big budget movie burnout, and it just happens that 90% of those movies are franchises.
Oh, so you're saying you have an issue with you're burned out with blockbusters in general?
Yeah, but it is a franchise thing.
Sure,
it is a franchise thing that I think leads to the burnout.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of it is I miss movies being an event. I miss a Star Wars movie happening once every 15 years. Or
they've never happened once every 15 years.
No, you know what I mean though. Like
it's a new crop of them.
A new crop of every 15 years for sure. But I miss that part of it too. But we're looking at one a year, maybe not anymore, depending on what they're figuring out to do. But even the TV stuff.
So what you're saying is, sorry, just to cut back to Star Wars really quick, is you want A New Hope, you want Phantom Menace, and you want Force Awakens, and nothing else. So, like, if you get your way, we're never having Empire.
Oh, I mean, if we had my way, a lot of Star Wars fans would be real mad. So, yeah, I like. We talked about the theater experience,
sure,
and it's still absolutely one of my favorite things. But at some point, I feel like I'm going to the movies to be able to have a conversation with people as opposed to enjoying the movie.
That problem could probably be solved by not being such a huge nerd and liking other things. But
what a fucking call out! Holy shit!
But personally, I have no intention of ever doing that. So I know what you mean. There's definitely an element of needing to stay up to date. And present with something.
Yeah, well, the social aspect of it is huge.
Yeah,
right. And again, that's the word blame is not the word I want to use, but it is an MCU thing. The water coolerness of the MCU is a very strange thing. Those movies come out, everybody talks about it. Nobody wants. It's weird. Nobody wants spoilers. Everybody wants to talk about it. It becomes water cooler fodder. And you sit around and you talk about hypotheticals and theories and all that stuff. So you don't want to. It's not that I know it's weird too because It's not that I don't want to miss out. But a lot of our social interactions revolve around those things.
Sure.
Now
I think partially that's because you love comics. And so like I think the MCU is an interesting franchise in that it's. A lot of these aren't original stories. Like maybe they're being told in a new and different way, but like they're adapted from stories that have existed in many cases for at least 20 years.
Sure.
Sure. Like there is a tendency I find with a lot of comics to adapt stuff that's really come out in the last 10. Shang-Chi is a good example. That character has existed since the 70s.
Yeah.
And essentially everything in that movie is either created whole cloth or is pulled directly from the run in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
That definitely happens. But my point is that the MCU is a little bit different than like a Star Wars situation where they're not necessarily adapted. It's tough too, actually. There's a lot of Star Wars novels that got adapted. What's a good example of this? I guess my point is that like they are adapting storylines. We want to see how they're being adapted, and I think 95% of the people that watch those movies haven't seen those stories anyway. They're not
Sure.
reading comics. But it is weird because we avoid spoilers, but all of these things have already happened.
All of these things have already happened. Yeah.
So
It's also, I am going to come off like just a massive whiny baby.
so like, is it going to sound like every other episode, or
It's the peer pressure and the expectation of
Okay.
these movies. You know, because I'm a movie guy and because I'm a comic book guy, it's expected that I'm there opening night. It's expected that and it's not just from you. There's a weird social pressure there, and an expectation, which I try not to fall into.
yeah?
I try not to fall into, but at some point, the line of me really enjoying the process and me enjoying doing it becomes blurred.
You know, I think you're right. It is unreasonable that people would expect someone that loves movies and comics to watch comic book movies like that. How fucking dare they? How do they get off?
I'm gonna catch a lot. I'm gonna catch a lot of heat for this episode because I know what I'm asking, and what I'm telling you is gonna be quite hypocritical.
Sure.
So it's a very, very strange thing, and it happens so often. Like, I'll make it known. I'm like, hey, I'm not the biggest comic book movie guy.
Yeah.
And without fail, it'll be like, you know,
Why?
the day of after, I'll get like a bazillion messages
Oh yeah.
being like, hey, what did you think?
Totally.
And it's just a copy and paste answer. It's like, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, and so I guess my question is, to actually ask you a real question instead of trying to snipe at you, did this start at some point? Like, my assumption is you went and saw Iron Man and were stoked.
Yeah.
So like 2008, not a problem.
Oh man, honestly, I would say I was pretty good. I was pretty good up until Age of Ultron.
Okay. So when it became popular. It was probably popular Avengers.
Yeah.
So this isn't just you being contrary.
No, despite my best efforts.
Yeah. So okay, I see that as I think there was a turning point there. I think Age of Ultron probably more or less marks a point where we start getting 3 or 4 a year.
Yeah, and you know what? I will fully admit it wasn't a Marvel problem to begin with.
Okay.
It was absolutely a Star Wars problem. If you ask me to pinpoint where it becomes an issue, it's The Force Awakens.
Oh, that first movie, huh?
That first movie, and I completely blame JJ
Why?
because of all the mystery boxes.
Oh, okay.
Now we're sitting 2 years discussing whether or not Rey has parents, and
she has parents.
all of this crap. Well, does she though? Like, that's the problem, right? Like, so it's 2 years of nonstop discussion, and with all that other stuff in between, and it started to grind on me a lot, and a lot of that is, you know, it's the circles I travel in,
Sure.
and all that stuff.
But so, how is that problem solved? Is that problem solved by, like, it sounds to me like the problem is solved by having another Star Wars movie 6 months later. Am I wrong?
The problem is solved by me. I don't know. Honestly, like, to me, like, what I did was I took myself out of it.
Yeah,
Fair.
fair.
I was part of Star Wars fan clubs and other things. The Star Wars is important to me.
Yeah.
That's what I grew up in. The movie watching habits, Return of the Jedi was my first movie.
Yeah.
Right. It will always have a huge impact on my life, but I had to take myself out of it.
Yeah.
And it was just wearing me down.
Mm-hmm.
And even when it wasn't Star Wars that was coming up, I felt like because these big budget movies kind of do all the same things, and that's very broad, and I get it, and that's a generalization, but I felt like I was having the same conversation over and over and over again.
Sure.
And so the burnout happens,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I found, like, I'm a big Marvel movie guy. I really do enjoy the MCU, and I don't feel the burnout with them. I understand why people would.
Yeah.
And especially with the Disney Plus stuff too.
Sure.
I find that really adds to it. But I don't find it. I think there's enough for me. There's enough of a distinction between the various projects that it keeps me interested and keeps me going. But I did find a little bit of it with Star Wars. I definitely found myself a little exhausted with the thought of a Star Wars movie a year, and I'm glad they've strayed away from that. But I think one of the bigger differences between the two franchises, and maybe part of the reason that lends itself to this burnout aspect is the fact that it doesn't seem like the Star Wars has had a guiding force like Kevin Feige, the head of Marvel Studios and the lead producer of all of those films. I believe Kathleen Kennedy is supposed to be that. She is the president of Lucasfilm, I believe. And if not her, then Dave Filoni, I think he is now an executive creative director or something, or like effectively head of creativity at Lucasfilm. And I don't know if they weren't put in charge of that or what. I think the fact that they decided to have a different director for each of the main trilogy Star Wars films was a bad call.
And to not have an ending ready to go.
They didn't have a story fleshed out. Like JJ ended up becoming the go-to. Like he did 2 of those 3 movies. And so if they were going to do JJ, that's fine. Like I honestly think JJ's a fine creative. I think he has a bit of an issue with endings. But either way, if they wanted to do him, that's fine. He should have fleshed out the story. And I think really what it comes down to is Disney buys Lucasfilm. They spend a shit ton of money on it, and they wanted a return as soon as possible. So they rushed it a bit because I think if they took the time to hash out a story arc, it'd be a couple more years before the first release.
That's fair.
So I'm not saying any of those are good reasons, but I agree with that. And I think that really at the end of the day, in my opinion, out of the 5 Star Wars films we got, it was just 5? Really? That's so weird.
Right? And it feels like more because the conversations won't end.
Yeah. Well, and so now that I'm saying this, actually, this isn't as bad as I thought. But of the 5 we got, I'd say 3 are good movies. So I love Force Awakens, still do. Yeah. Your points that you've made in the past, that there's too many mystery boxes, and that at the end of that film, those characters haven't advanced in arcs, is totally valid. Yeah. As you've mentioned in the past, not on this podcast, but
which we won't go into because that's a different podcast.
Absolutely. Is those characters likely should be where they're by the end of Force Awakens, they should be at where they are at the end of The Last Jedi. Yeah. And that absolutely makes sense. Either way, my point is I think we get Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rogue One are all great films. Solo is unfortunate.
Putting yourself on the chopping block with that Last Jedi take.
Maybe
it's the best movie of the 5 that they put out. There it is. I'll say it.
I love Force Awakens.
Yeah,
and I think Rogue One's really, really good. I'd have a hard time picking between those 3. I think, but Last Jedi I think is a good film. Yeah. Really, the problem is Ryan comes in and says we need to get this franchise back on track, and we need to get this trilogy where it should be. And the Last Jedi erasure that we see in Rise of Skywalker, thank you, is so unfortunate. And it's a big part of the reason that movie sucks, in my opinion, is it's so clearly them backpedaling and going, well, I guess people weren't happy, and like coming up with something else.
And there we go. We've just lost all of our audience.
Like, frankly, if you think The Rise of Skywalker is a good movie, fine.
Sure.
Go ahead. Stick your head in the ground and live your life. I am okay with people enjoying things. I think I have an issue with someone truly coming at me and trying to argue the merits of the film. Yeah. And, merits of good filmmaking when it comes to a movie like Rise of Skywalker. I'm not going to be a dick about this, really. Again, if someone truly believes that, absolutely go nuts, man. You like what you like. But it's so upsetting to me that effectively we end up having the whole studio effectively turning against Rian Johnson there and saying, well, your ideas were bad, so we're going to go against them. But he's still apparently doing the Star Wars trilogy, so
who knows, right?
Who comes out on top there?
And maybe it's a different discussion for a different day, but those discussions specifically about Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker were is a contributing factor.
Yeah.
Right. And it is the as much as I want these things to be social, the Star Wars stuff, having to talk about Force Awakens for 2 years, and then coinciding stuff with the Marvel stuff where we were seeing things like Doctor Strange and Ant-Man come out back to back, and I'm just not having anything to say about them. Because they're other than the characters that I just don't. So now I'm feeling like I'm in like a bit of a hamster wheel with these movies. And again, we're bagging on Star Wars and Marvel, and it's not just them.
It's not. They are definitely big heavy hitters in that issue in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that before in the MCU episode about how there is, of the 27 MCU movies. I keep making up numbers, so it's going to be one of them. I'm going to get it right.
One day you'll hit it.
Yeah. Out of the 32 MCU movies, there's at least half that basically blend in with the pack. Probably more than that. Probably I'd say 2/3.
Yeah.
Blend in with the pack in terms of quality. And it's just like, they're fine.
Yeah.
They absolutely deliver the MCU formula. They are fun films. I would watch them.
Yeah. And then the conversation dies.
Yeah. And so I think maybe that's where I agree with some of the franchise burnout is I think toxic fandom ruins some of this. And that's literally going to be a discussion for another day. Somewhere down the line when we when I get my balls together and figure it out.
Yeah, I'm watering mine right now to grow some.
Yeah. We need to talk about toxic fandom and the impact it has on the industry, the impact it has on creatives, because I think that's a really important topic. But I think that's what partially ruins it.
Sure, absolutely.
You get the angry Star Wars nerds involved with, and sorry, I don't want to say nerd like it's a bad thing. I am a huge nerd. But you get truly angry Star Wars fans that get all pissed off about Last Jedi because they decided that Ryan was the worst in the world and yada yada yada, and he should have done this and this better. And I think it doesn't become about enjoying a series of films anymore.
No,
and there's politics involved. What's her name? Oh man, if only I prepared.
You didn't think you'd have to talk about Last Jedi.
Yeah. The lovely Last Jedi actress, the
Rosemary
Asian,
Tran.
Thank you, Rosemary Tran. I knew Rose was in there.
Yeah.
She, effectively gets sent away from those films. She's in Rise of Skywalker for like 30 seconds because fans decided they hated her, and it was woke SJW bullshit, and like. If we're putting ourselves on that political scale, which I really don't want to, but I think I'm more on the SJW side of things than I'm on the, incel side of things. But I just don't get it. Like, why? Why do you care so much, man? Like, what really is this? What you're gonna hang your whole opinion and your identity on the fact that there was an Asian lady in a Star Wars movie?
Yeah.
Fuck off.
I remember that movie coming out and like trying to watch some reviews, and every video reviewer thing was just like, there it is. There's a female pilot right away. That's the first thing I see, just shoving it down my throat. And I was like, I just don't get it.
Yeah.
In a galaxy with green aliens, I don't understand why the female pilot bothers you so much.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like, it's not like. The shot is her going, oh, my ovaries. Like her being female has nothing to do with it. That is a pilot.
Yeah, like if you want to watch the director's cut, that's on you. But like, it's just the theatrical's just not there. So yeah, toxic fandom is absolutely part of it. And again, I to your point, I just don't understand what it is they want. It's what I've discovered in the last 5 years is headcanon is the most dangerous thing. In the creative,
sure,
or against creatives. Again, I don't envy a guy who had to walk in and try to fill in the gaps of some poor 8-year-old boy's idea of what Luke Skywalker is going to be 30 years later.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a tightrope to walk, and I get it. But at the end of the day, these guys got to realize that somebody was hired to put out their own vision of it. Does it mean he hates Star Wars? No, it just he saw Luke Skywalker differently from the way you did, man.
Yeah.
He played with his Luke Skywalker toy differently than the way you did.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean he hates Star Wars. That's just not it.
Well, it doesn't mean he did it wrong.
No, there's no right or wrong. There's just if you enjoyed it or you didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't ruin Star Wars. He didn't take away your childhood. like that stuff still exists, obviously, or else you wouldn't have this problem.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, frankly, I think we're getting a little bit off
Yeah,
topic.
a little bit.
But I think for me, if I was to get tired of a franchise, like I did get a little bit tired of Star Wars, which is amazing given that there was only 5 movies.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
we only recently started getting more Star Wars stuff. And everyone loved Mando. You know, like there was no issues there. And partially, you know, it's a man. Anyway, what I do find interesting about Star Wars is there is a bit of a creative lack there. I found it really upsetting when Solo, the original directors, Chris Miller and Phil Lord.
Yeah,
nailed that. I wasn't sure if it was Phil Miller, Chris Miller, Phil Lord.
You got it.
We're fired for creative differences off the set of Solo. And they hired.
Here comes good old reliable Ron Howard.
That's the thing, yeah, the safest bet, Ron Howard, and just created a boring film. Personally, we didn't need. Like I don't need a Han Solo movie. I didn't need that. I was really disappointed with that movie because that opening heist scene. You have a whole crew of ragtag characters that I would have way rather followed for a full film. And you know, spoiler for a 7-year-old movie? No, less than that. Anyway, whatever it is.
5-year-old movie. Yeah.
If you want to watch Solo unspoiled, maybe skip the next 30 seconds. The Maul reveal is awesome. And I love Maul, especially from the Clone Wars animated series. But I would have loved to have seen more live action Maul.
Yeah.
And so, it sucks we didn't get that. I loved Lando. Donald Glover, that guy, incredible. You know, like so he does an amazing job as Lando, and it sucks that we don't get to see more of that. But partially we don't get to see that because they didn't know what to do. You know, like they shoved the entire character's backstory into that 2-hour movie, and I'm like, wow. So you did nothing else for like 20 years. Anyway, like even the shows we're getting now.
I was about to say, I know I feel it. I don't know, and I know you had similar feelings about something like Boba Fett.
Yeah,
where you're just like, oh, you're like, I gotta watch it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and they just very noticeably become Mandalorian season 2.
They didn't even try.
Or season 3?
2.5. Really?
Yeah. Yeah, we've already done 2 seasons of Mando. Yeah. So like it's ridiculous that that's where we're at. And you know, the thought of, hey, let's watch Boba Fett being a crime lord. Awesome. I'm in. Yeah. Let's do it. Why doesn't he get to be a crime lord? Let him do it. Just give me what you sold me on.
I think again it's tough because maybe again this is just me being a hypocrite. It's just like I don't want rehashes of old stuff. Like I get it. I like that first season of Mandalorian a lot.
Yeah.
I even like most of the second season. You know what part I hated? The ending.
Yeah. Because it wasn't Plo Koon. They trot out Luke again. And I'm like, I get it. Luke's important. Why couldn't we just bring Plo Koon back from the dead?
Yeah.
Who knows if he's dead?
And I get it. All these people are just like, that's the Luke we want. I'm like, that's a different conversation for a different day. But at the end of the day, I just want we're 40 years removed from that original trilogy.
Yeah.
I just want some evolution in this entire universe. You know, like
why are we still keeping up with the Skywalkers?
Yeah, and like why are we always on Tatooine?
Oh yeah. Okay, so a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, we set every movie on one desert planet, and everything is about this one family. Are you kidding?
I get it. I get it. If they're the focal point, it's fine.
They don't need.
But we've been told otherwise. We've been told it's a big galaxy with a lot of stories.
Yep.
And we just keep coming back to it.
And we don't see them.
And so there's burnout there because I keep expecting different stuff.
Yep.
And, we got a lot of that cool stuff in the first season of Mandalorian. It's a new vibe. It's a new character. Got new characters.
Yep.
And then that second season becomes a commercial for 3 other shows that I'm going to watch but don't care about.
Well, and I think this is actually where Marvel, again, has done really good things. Like, if we were on Iron Man 8 by now, we'd have a problem. You know, like he was in lots of movies. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think he ended up being in 9 or 10 total. Some cameos, some
Sure.
like he did Spider-Man for 8 minutes. You know, like it's really not an Iron Man movie, but you do feel his presence.
Yeah,
yeah. But like again, if we were on Iron Man 8, people would be burnt out too. Like people want cool Star Wars stuff. Absolutely. I think it's a great universe. I think those are characters. There are people there that I'm interested in finding more out about. I don't want it to be the same people. I don't want to stay on the same planets. You know, like the very first episode of The Mandalorian, he's on like some, I think it's like a ocean frozen planet thing.
Weird
I don't
icy
know.
thing.
Yeah. And I think the very first line is, I can bring you in warm or I can bring you in cold.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is amazing. Let's do this every episode. You know, and obviously you got a lone gunslinger vibe with them. They introduced Grogu so that we have someone to care about. You know, like we do care about the Mandalorian, but at the same time, like, he doesn't take off his helmet. He can't be emotional. We need to have an anchor. They nailed aspects of that show.
Yeah.
Why did we go back to Tatooine? Why? Like, come on, man.
Yeah, and that's the thing to me. It's just like I'm excited, and I'm stoked, and I haven't been stoked for Star Wars stuff for a while for Mandalorian season 2, and then all of a sudden Boba Fett shows up, all of a sudden Luke shows up, all of a sudden Ahsoka shows up, and I'm like, oh, so now,
okay. Do not bring Ahsoka into this.
It's just part of the thing.
She's my queen.
I get it. She's great. But I struggle with the idea. I just want new stuff, man.
Yeah.
I want new stuff because I need to feel like this stuff is fresh.
Sure. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
I need to feel that it's fresh, and I'm gonna get bagged on because I'm the guy that fucking dunks all over the DCU. For trying new things. But it doesn't feel like it's trying new things.
For the record, though, I don't think you dunk on them for trying new things.
No.
You dunk on them for trying the same things. The fact that we keep going back to Snyder stuff and we keep going back to those themes and vibes.
Sure.
You know, like the first movie in the DCEU group that was not noticeably Snydery is Wonder Woman. And that movie's incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love Wonder Woman.
It's a slam dunk. And it feels different. I have some issues with Joker. As a film, and we won't get into that. It's another topic.
Yeah.
But ultimately, still a well-made film, or like aspects of it are. And I like the fact that they did something new and exciting. They took a character and they're like, we're never gonna see this Joker with Batman. We're not, and that's great.
Yeah.
Cool. Do it. I like the fact that we're doing a Flashpoint movie. There's other problems there, like Ezra Miller in particular, but. It's different. So I like that we can have these things that are sort of maybe connected, but also not at all.
Yeah.
But the reasons those movies fail have nothing to do with them. The fact that they're trying different things.
No, I guess not. If you want to talk about it in that sense, man, I honestly don't know what it is with the DCU and me, and I know so much of it has to do with they're just not the characters I recognize. At all, with the Marvel stuff, they're obviously loosely taken from the stories and whatnot, but for the core of the characters are there.
Yep,
the core of the characters are there, but
that's not always true for the DC stuff, though, right?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Like I don't recognize that Batman. I don't recognize that Superman.
What about the new Batman? He's in the DC universe.
So like that's a different thing. We're gonna talk about this at some point. But that Batman movie, the new one, the Matt Reeves one, is incredible and is my favorite interpretation of Batman on screen.
So they nailed the character there. What about Wonder Woman?
Wonder Woman's pretty good. I mean, again, I struggle with the second movie a lot. I think a lot of people do.
We'll stick with the first one. The
first one's great.
What about Aquaman?
No. I mean, Aquaman I struggle with utterly and completely. I get it. People like Momoa and he looks like a hobo Aquaman. Like I love it. You do. You love dude bro Aquaman.
Oh yeah, I do.
But and this is the comic book nerd in me, but to me I just needed him to be a little bit more regal, a little bit more kingly.
Oh, he's a king.
He's not.
Oh, yeah, he is. He's my king.
God damn it. Yeah. So there's just I struggle with a lot of the interpretation. And the thing is I won't I won't fault people for liking it. That's the difference, right? Like I if people enjoy those movies, which they do, and I don't get it, but I'm not gonna crap all over your opinion. If you like something, you enjoy something. If you like Batfleck, go for it, man. But there's something to be said about a Batman who's just murdering people with his car.
Yeah, yeah. I will let that not obvious lie stand. But so I'm curious about, and this is a franchise that, as my wife tells me regularly, I have no right to talk about.
Yeah.
But Harry Potter, so I think in a lot of ways they've avoided some of that franchise burnout. And
Sure.
First of all, because at its height, I believe that the first one came out in 2001 and the last one came out in 2011. It might have been as late as 2013, though.
Yeah.
Either way, we have
A decade.
8 movies over more than a decade.
More than a decade.
So they're decently spread out. I feel like they're fairly faithful adaptations. You know, like obviously there's going to be fans that are upset. The fact is you can't take a 700-page book and shove it into 2.5 hours. You can't.
You can't.
However, I also kind of disagree with books being split into 2 in a lot of cases, just because a book is designed as a story arc. So splitting it into 2 means the first half's going to suck because it's supposed to be establishing, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, Dune had this problem as well, where I feel like the end of that movie just happens. And there's no real climax. There's no real moment where I'm like, oh, you know, this is the Dune. You know,
Dune.
they're doing the Dune thing. You know, like a lot of it feels set up. Great movie, loved it.
Yeah.
But it does feel like setup. Or if the climax happens, it happens in like, you know, the first half, really.
Sure.
With that invasion, you know. So either way, my point is that I don't think there's any way to please anyone there. But those are films that are generally well loved.
Yeah.
And I don't think they did anything too ridiculous.
Yeah.
Fantastic Beasts happens. First movie, I think, fairly well loved. Why is there burnout with this franchise already? Or is that just a me thing?
I mean, that's a really good question. I think so much of it, the first 8 movies? 8 movies? Yeah, 8 movies.
Yeah, that's the core.
Because they're adaptations. Again, we don't have much to talk about. You can talk about, hey, they did a pretty good job.
Yep.
They did a really, really good job with that movie. I wish they didn't change this. I wish they didn't change that.
Yeah.
The conversation's over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? We don't have anything to do. We have 0 things to go on with Fantastic Beasts. So again, we have to talk about it incessantly until the next one. Until the next one. And then this is where with Fantastic Beasts in particular, I think this is where it becomes a problem where franchises walk back their own story. And it becomes a bigger problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is really disappointing in the Fantastic Beasts aspect because JK is actively involved. Sorry, just for clarity, everyone knows, but J.K. Rowling, the writer of Harry Potter, is actively involved as the screenwriter of the 2 Fantastic Beasts, or now 3 Fantastic Beasts films. Which she wasn't involved as a screenwriter in the core 8 films.
Yeah.
Whether that was a good decision or a bad one. But like when these films were coming out, generally there was a fair amount of hope from the fans, given the fact that the person who created the world was the writer, was writing the new story.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know that there was some disappointment with some of the story in The Cursed Child, the Harry Potter stage adaptation that took place after the core 7 books. But that was written by someone else. It was signed off by JK. But like a lot of people, I think, were willing to cut her some slack of like, well, maybe she wanted to see what someone else new would do with it. You know, there's nothing wrong with trying something out. So knowing that she was involved, I think, gave a lot of fans hope. And my raid of the situation is that people are already fairly tired of this. And like you said, it's because she's going back on some of that.
Yeah.
I know that one of the first things I remember hearing is that McGonagall is in that first Fantastic Beasts movie, even though the timeline doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's weird small stuff like that. And I think, unfortunately for Fantastic Beasts, so much of the burnout doesn't have to do with the movie.
Sure.
You know, I mean, we're not going to talk about Johnny Depp here, but like the Johnny Depp stuff on top whether his original casting was a thing, and him taken off was a big deal. Recasting it, then the JK stuff that we've had a conversation about,
the transphobic
comments, like that. So much drama around these movies, and so little of it has to do with the movies. So the burnout is just constantly having it in peripheral vision, and how problematic maybe the whole thing has been.
Well, and I think, like you said, even if someone is removed from some of that, like the drama outside of the film, knowing and seeing that some of the world is being twisted, or the rules aren't exactly being followed the way they were initially set up, is strange. I know my wife in particular was not happy watching that trailer for the Fantastic Beasts 3, whatever.
Secrets of Dumbledore?
Sure, whatever you say. When she saw the Muggle holding and potentially using a wand. At the very least, the trailer is supposed to imply that he's doing that thing.
Yeah.
I keep saying to her, we don't know at this point if he's actively using magic with it. But again, the trailer definitely.
So that's a trailer messing with you then.
Well, it could be. So my argument is maybe they're just trying to piss people off, and it generates discussion, and then it's going to generate more buzz about the movie, and then people are going to hate watch it, and then find out, oh, I was wrong, or just hate watch it, anyway. But either way, my point is I know that generated some anger in some of the fans. So it is strange to me that it seems that the original creator, who seems like they would have the most to gain out of this world, is throwing it in their face. And that's the George Lucas thing too.
I was about to say, that's exactly it, right? He's just going to go back, and you're just going to do it the way. And with George, it's maybe the argument is like, well, this is the way I had always envisioned it, and now the technology has caught up to my ideas. Was the original?
Yeah, but metachlorians wasn't a technology thing. It wasn't. And I think I have a bit of a hard time with some of that. I think that people like worship at the throne of George Lucas, and I feel like it's not deserved, or not deserved, or the scope of it isn't deserved. Sure. I'm not saying he's not a good creator, but I am saying that.
But to put him on the level of like a Spielberg or
the
whatever,
pedestal he's been put on is massive, and like I don't know, I honestly kind of equate him with a little bit more of like a Kevin Smith. What
a hot ass take.
But he's not a bad creator at all, but he likes doing his own thing.
Yeah.
And he's ultimately making things because he wants to make them, because he, and it's not necessarily because it always makes the most sense, or because it, like very clearly to me, there's a lot of stuff in Star Wars that's like, oh yeah, we figured this out later, and I guess we'll just shoehorn it sort of in there. Like there's first drafts of that first script that, literally have Luke Skywalker's dad as a character. Vader wasn't designed as his father. Oh, shoot. Spoilers for a 70-year-old movie. 70? 50. Anyway, so I think there was a lot of things that were made up. And, sorry. Everything was noticeably made up. But, I mean, he didn't have a grand vision, I don't think. I don't think this was something where he laid out the whole structure in 76 and then just filmed it.
Well, I mean, that's a great segue to a different franchise. Ridley Scott and Aliens.
Oh, yeah, totally. Absolutely.
And to be clear, Aliens had 4 movies to start before Prometheus, and only 2 of them were good.
Correct.
So we went back to the well and made 2 more bad movies.
Well, so let me just backtrack for just a second to the original 4. We have Alien, made by Ridley Scott, directed by Ridley Scott. Yeah. We have Aliens, which is Alien 2, directed by James Cameron.
Yep.
Alien 3, which is directed by David Fincher.
Yeah.
Rip. Wow. And then Alien 4, I have no idea.
It's a French dude that ended up doing pretty well for himself.
Okay, good for him.
Yeah.
Huge. But so, I guess my quick point is, how much of that failure of those, only 2 of those movies being good, how much of that is Ridley Scott's fault?
Not much, honestly. To be fair, I just listened to a podcast about David Fincher's time on Aliens 3, and it sounds like a nightmare.
I think it was his first film.
It's
and
his first film.
Easily his worst.
It's his first film, and it almost made him not want to direct film anymore.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right. And it was just a massive studio clusterfuck.
Yeah.
Of trying to get that shit right.
Yeah.
There's apparently a director's cut that I won't watch. I mean, I should.
No.
I like the David Fincher stuff. I like David Fincher enough to maybe see it.
Incredible.
He's incredible. But that movie sucks. Well, and I just don't know if a director's cut's going to save it.
I agree. I think you take a turd, you polish it as much as you can. You just got to polish turd.
Yeah, like unless fucking Newt survives in that first 10 minutes of the director's cut, it's not a better movie.
Yeah, unless he literally made a different film.
Yeah, and then the fourth one's just bad. It's just bad. So yeah, I thought, you know, I'm like, I was okay with that franchise just being those two movies. The first two movies.
Like, are we even going to talk about Alien versus Predator, or are we just going to?
I mean, to be fair, I love those movies.
Okay. So
but it's weird. I've never put those Alien versus Predator movies in an Alien franchise or a Predator franchise. They just felt like their own thing.
Like, I have an Alien versus Predator box set that is all Alien, all Predator, all AVP movies. So I'm just saying, as far as I'm concerned, they've always been together.
I mean, that's cool. I just when I think about Aliens movies, I don't think about those Aliens versus Predators.
Yeah, that's fair. So the first four aside, tell me about Prometheus.
Prometheus is one of the most unique movie experiences I've ever been in.
Were you excited going in because you knew it's Ridley Scott? Like, are you excited about the fact that the creator is coming back?
It's Ridley Scott. It's Fassbender.
Yeah.
You know, Geiger's doing the designs again.
Yeah.
It looks incredible. It's a great trailer.
That whole cast is great, but I literally can't think of anyone's names right now. So.
I'm not a big fan of Numi. Like, I know most people are.
Oh, no, she's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'm in the minority there. And I get it. That's fine. I'm not a big fan, but so the cast is great.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty stoked. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we're, you know, it feels like we're 20 years removed from the debacle of Alien Resurrection.
Sure.
I'm like, it's time. We were far enough removed that I think I'm cool with getting a little bit more of this.
Yeah.
And I'm watching it, and I think I'm enjoying myself, and I'm doing all right. And then the movie's done, and you know, we usually stand around, we talk about it or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't really have much to say, and I was kind of confused about it. I got in the car, and I started talking about it with my wife, and within 10 minutes, it was one of the most hated. It was a movie I just absolutely hated.
Yeah.
It just snowballed and dominoed into this disaster of a film.
Sure.
And man, I could not hate it more.
So my understanding is, having read a few interviews and stuff about it, is that this was a movie that was created, not intended as an Alien film, and then it was intended as an Alien film, and then it wasn't, and then it was.
Yeah.
And I think eventually what happened was, like, how I always kind of read it, whether this is true or not, is basically that Ridley Scott wanted to make a sci-fi thing. The studio was like, hey, what if it's an alien thing? And he's like, I don't want to do Alien. What if it's like sort of an alien? Like maybe there's sort of aliens connected, or it's alien adjacent. And they were like, cool. And then he starts making the movie, and they were like, I thought there was aliens in this. And he goes, well, no, that's not what we talked about. And they were like, you should put an alien in it, you know? And so by the 8th month of them tapping on his shoulder and go, hey, so like, where are the aliens? I think he's like, oh, fine, screw it. And then threw one in there. But it's not even like it's a weird alien origin story that I don't really get, and it feels
and it ruins the mystique of the xenomorph.
Oh, totally.
Because whether or not you can argue that David orchestrated the whole thing, it's still a calamity of errors to make a xenomorph.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So
it's supposed to be like the perfect killing machine, and instead it was like, this was an accident that happens to kill people.
So you could tell me that studio story all you want, and I'm like, yeah, I buy it.
Sure.
But then the next movie is called Alien Covenant.
Yeah.
So,
well, like they clearly leaned into it. You know, like, so I'm willing to cut Ridley Scott a little bit of slack for some of that.
Sure.
But not for all of it at all. Like, he definitely decided, was just like, okay, these guys are going to pay me, and just made another bad movie.
Yeah.
Like, I think Covenant's better than Prometheus, but frankly, I think Covenant just does a better job of, like, it seems like it has a little bit more of a clear vision, while Prometheus feels all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, it's less brown of a turd.
Yeah. Like, I enjoyed it more than Prometheus for sure.
Yeah.
But it's not a movie I've ever seen again beyond the first time I watched it in theaters.
And it's a unique thing too, because like I just said, I was watching Prometheus, and I didn't hate it while watching it.
Sure.
But because of what the sour taste of Prometheus that left in my mouth, I actively had a bad time in Alien Covenant because of it, which is very different, I guess, if I'm being self-aware.
So I'm curious, where are you at with movies and franchises around Prometheus release?
Prometheus is what, 2012?
I think it's later than that. My guess is 2015.
No, you know. It's before I moved here, okay. So it's before 2014.
Okay.
So
2012 then. You're probably right. I honestly don't know.
Maybe 13.
Sure.
But I'm pretty good. I mean, Avengers is 2012.
Okay.
Right?
So you're not burnt out yet?
I don't think I'm burnt out yet.
So this isn't a franchise thing either?
No, and at that point, I don't know that I'm actively aware or actively thinking about it as a franchise movie, if that makes any sense. And I don't know if that's in my head until much later down, until the burnout starts to happen.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, it's an interesting point. I think I think Alien is interesting because I feel like there's a bit of a push there to make it an MCU thing. Yeah. Not like part of the MCU, but I mean, like, I feel like it's one of those films or one of those franchises that gets pulled in and they have to start going, okay, well, how do we make this a cinematic universe? And it ends up becoming a victim of hubris, frankly. Like, those movies should not be in any sort of cinematic universe. Maybe with Predators. Maybe. But, like, no.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, and, you know, if hubris is what you want to talk about, then I don't know that we can not talk about Jurassic Park.
Oh, hit me with Jurassic Park. Go ahead.
There's a lot of these big franchise movies, when you think about them, a lot of them don't start off as one of the greatest movies ever made.
Okay. Well, that's okay. There's a little bit to unpack there.
The first Jurassic Park is a landmark movie.
Hold up. You made some claims, and now I have to address that. I would argue a little bit.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of cases, the reason franchises happen, or especially ones that weren't exactly intended to happen, is because that first movie is incredible and blew people's minds. Star Wars is a great example.
I think there's outliers. Like, I'm thinking Star Wars, I'm thinking Jaws, and I'm thinking Jurassic Park.
Well, I'm even thinking MCU. Like, maybe not in terms of it being a groundbreaking film, but like, Iron Man did change how movies were made.
Yes.
You know, and so like that is still.
I don't know that Iron Man did, or if the whole thing as a whole did. The whole first phase did. I credit Iron Man with being an incredible movie. I don't know that I credit it as being a groundbreaking movie. In terms of, I think those are groundbreaking movies. Once you put those bumpers together.
Once we get to Avengers, maybe?
Yeah. Once you get to Avengers. I think Avengers is the groundbreaking movie.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, but
anyway, I'll let you continue.
But for the most part, I think a lot of these franchise movies is based on the financial success of a film and not the quality, like not an overall quality of film.
Sure.
So again, when I talk about, landmark films, Star Wars, yes. Jaws, Jurassic Park, maybe Indiana Jones.
Right.
So, but the where Jurassic Park was and where Jurassic Park is two very different things. That first movie comes out and it's still one of the most memorable theater experiences I've ever had, and I was fucking 10.
Okay.
And there's a little bit of that fandom and pomp and circumstance for Lost World.
Okay.
But by Jurassic Park 3, it's a joke of a franchise.
Oh, it's deflated for sure.
Right? And so then, Jurassic World comes out and does well, does decent numbers.
Does extremely well.
Well.
I believe it's still in one of the top 10
Yeah.
highest earning films of all time.
All time. But it feels out of place to me. And now the first Jurassic Park feels out of place to me in its own franchise. I
don't see that personally, but I'll let you.
Yeah,
continue.
Man, I'm going to talk myself in circles here, but Jurassic World feels like a cash grab. And it feels like it's that theme park thing that my buddy Marty Scorsese talks about, where there's not a lot of substance to it. So now we're getting sequels to that, and we had the one. What was it? Fallen World?
Yeah, something like
just
that.
a garbage movie.
Yeah,
just an
terrible.
absolute garbage movie. So now we're 5 movies deep into this thing, 6 coming, right? And one of them is good, and one of them is arguably one of the greatest movies ever made. So I struggle with the idea of capitalizing on it and not needing those movies. I don't need the other 5.
Yeah, and I would argue with you on Jurassic World. I think that it is, sure, maybe it's a bit of a cash grab, but I think it stands on its own. I think that's still a good movie. I think it's an enjoyable movie. I think the only reason I have any issues with that movie is it feels like it's Chris Pratt doing the same thing, which I think by that point for me I was a little tired of. But I can't fault the film for putting an actor in a place where, frankly, he's great as that character. He's exactly what he should be as that character. So that's not the film's fault. I think this film's still plenty enjoyable. Is it going to be as groundbreaking as Jurassic Park? No. But, I think it's unreasonable to expect that as well. I will not defend Fallen World or whatever, Fallen Kingdom.
That's the one.
Cares?
That's the one.
Is it Fallen Kingdom?
Yeah. I think you got it.
Whatever. I won't defend that at all. It's not worth defending. It's a terrible film. Shouldn't have been made. But I would say there's 2 entries into that franchise that are worth watching. I don't think because something's a cash grab, therefore it's bad.
No, no, and we'll come back to that later because there's stuff I'm not saying it's something that shouldn't happen. Mm-hmm. It's a business. Absolutely. Sure. If it's a cash grab, go for it.
Yeah.
I think I struggle with it more in terms of being able to latch onto it and enjoying it for what it is. When I think I hold that first movie in such high regard.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the issue more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully cop to it.
Yeah. Where I see the cash grabbiness and the real soul selling aspect of that is that second film where they promoted the hell out of Jeff Goldblum coming back, and then he's in it for 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Delivering a speech to Congress or something, and that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And again, that movie's awful, but that really seems to me like they're selling nostalgia.
Yeah.
I truly think that plenty of kids watched Jurassic World and enjoyed it. So that it's not like that movie just succeeded on nostalgia. The upcoming film looks like it's like they're bringing back the whole original cast.
Yeah.
And it really does look to me like they are banking on nostalgia. I still think, based on the trailer, that film looks good, and I will probably watch it. However, we'll wait and see, right?
Yeah.
My point is, though, that I still think that first film has enough creative merit and has enough going for it that it's, I don't mind it being included within that franchise.
Sure. I think my struggles is mostly come down to having to put that first Jurassic Park movie into that franchise. It just feels out of place. But it's the same with Jaws, right? There's a bunch of Jaws sequels.
Yeah, I think there's 4.
Yeah, and I just don't like it. It's the thing is, I like some of those movies. I think Jaws 3D is a riot, but I never think about that first Jaws being as part of the franchise. It's very, very strange.
Yeah,
and I know it's a me thing, and I know this entire episode has been me basically dunking on myself.
No. But that's fine. And I think that, I don't think there's anything explicitly wrong with that in terms of, if someone says, hey, you should watch The Godfather, what they mean is you should watch The Godfather Part 1 and Part 2.
Correct.
And no one, and you just don't think about Part 3. I've literally seen box sets that only have the first two. That's incredible. So, I think that there's some level of that's okay. But, in the case of Jaws as well, really, I guess my point, or the big thing with that is it's still groundbreaking. That's a groundbreaking film.
Yeah.
But the reason it's groundbreaking is because of what that individual film did, not because of what the series did.
Absolutely.
In the same way that if you talk about the MCU, you can't just talk about Iron Man. Because that's not what really broke ground.
Yeah. And so when I think of like a franchise, I do think of it as a series of films.
Mm-hmm.
So when there's an outlier like Jaws or Jurassic Park, and it just doesn't feel like it fits in with the rest of them. When I talk about the Jurassic Park movies, for some weird reason, I don't think of Jurassic Park.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. I don't see it that way.
Yeah.
But I understand why you would think that.
Yeah.
And this is a kind of a good segue as well, is what I guess I don't understand about franchises and leads into the whole, to sum us all up for the franchise burnout thing is why do franchises think they have to be the MCU?
Because of the success.
I understand, but at the same time, that not every space movie needs to be Star Wars. I understand saying that. There's a lot of space movies that kind of turn into Star Wars, but it's ridiculous to me that studios, that creatives see something popular and go, well, our thing that's totally removed from that needs to be that. Otherwise, we will fail.
That's tough. And honestly, and this is not me knowing for sure, but in the day and age of social media and being able to track conversation and track traffic of conversation, I wonder if so much of that has to do with it. If an MCU movie comes out or if an MCU trailer comes out, all of a sudden the number one trending topic is Patrick Stewart in the Doctor Strange trailer.
Yeah, sure.
So that's a huge deal, right? So I wonder if a lot of these studios look at that and be like, well, we just want people to start talking about the movies the same way. Mm-hmm. And the only way to do that is to put them in a series of connected events that don't really connect or should connect.
I don't know if that's the only way to do that.
It's not, but it's the quickest and easiest way to do it.
Maybe.
Right?
I see why a studio would think that, or a executive would think
that. And there's a novelty to it. Right? I don't know if you remember for a couple of years, they were like, we're just going to make Men in Black and 21 Jump Street movies.
Yeah, and that's amazing.
See?
For the record,
yeah.
If that happened, the world would be better off.
So, the idea that stuff like that gets thrown around doesn't surprise me anymore. So a franchise being like, yeah, we're just going to make more Jurassic Park movies or Alien movies or Indiana Jones movies or... we're gonna throw $1 billion to make more Lord of the Rings content.
Okay, whoa,
whoa,
I get it, but I'm pretty stoked about the new Lord of the Rings stuff.
Sure,
I don't think that trilogy's untouchable, but I like the world, and they're doing different stuff. If it would be different. I think the Hobbit stuff really feels like a really big cash grab to me. It feels soulless in the way that those original 3 didn't. So yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying, and it upsets me that I get it. I guess what I'm getting at is, Brandon, I liking things. Stop ruining my enjoyment.
I'm gonna blow up my entire argument for this entire thing.
Let's do it.
With my enjoyment of the Fast and Furious franchise.
Ooh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't fall into any of the pitfalls of any of the other franchises. I get a Fast and Furious movie once every 2 to 3 years. It's ridiculous for 2 hours. And I'm not overexposed to any of those actors in any of the movies. I'm not.
Dwayne Johnson.
That's why he's not in them anymore.
Well, yeah, but
and and arguably he's the worst part of those movies.
Yeah, but he's been in them for a decade.
No, he's only been in 3 of them, and one of them is his own spin-off.
Only been 3?
Four.
He started in Fast 5.
Oh, he's in 8. So he's in 5 of them.
Yeah,
he's in 5 of them,
and there's only 9.
So
well, 10. I
the
guess,
spin-off,
the
spin-off, but like,
so he's in half.
He's in. Oh God, he's in half of them, but he's not.
He's almost in as many as Paul Walker.
Oh wow! You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But again, he's not the best part of those movies. He's not the reason why I watch those movies. And by the time it starts to get to the later stages he's sidelines himself. Like, he gets sidelined.
Sure.
In 7, he's in the hospital for 90% of the movie. He comes out and he breaks out of the cast and he does the chain gun thing, which is fine. It's rad as hell. And shoots on a helicopter.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I'm not overexposed to him like I am Chris Pratt. You know?
But why are you overexposed to Chris Pratt?
Because of the Marvel movies.
He's in like 3.
Yeah. But because I have to talk about the Marvel movies constantly.
Right?
So,
yeah, I guess no one's really talking about Journey to the Mysterious Island.
No, because when you watch a Dwayne Johnson movie, you watch it and you forget about it half an hour after you've watched it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you watch 3 Guardians movies, 2 Avengers movies,
2 Guardians movies.
Well, 3 coming up, I guess. 2
Eventually.
2 Jurassic Park movies, the Lego movie, 2 Lego movies. I think I'm done. All in the span of a meteoric rise of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. It's a lot of Chris Pratt.
Like, that's like a Chris Pratt movie every 2 years.
That's too much. No, like, it just, those Fast and Furious guys are in those Fast and Furious movies, and kind of that's it.
And that's it. Yeah, fair enough.
So even like
Vin Diesel's in Guardians. You don't give him the same help.
I don't. I don't at all. So I enjoy them immensely.
Sure.
But I don't have burnout from them.
Yeah.
When I had burnout from them? Hobbs and Shaw. I hate that movie.
Yeah. Didn't see it.
Good.
Bad.
Good. It is bad. It's brutal. And it came out too fast after 8. And maybe a little bit too furiously after 8.
I was going to touch it. Should I leave it?
And I suffer from it immediately.
Yeah.
Right? So them capitalizing on that it makes it so that I don't want it. But the core stuff, I get it once every couple of years. I'm not overexposed to the actors. It stays within its own lane. It doesn't try to be something it's not.
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, so much of this is just a fact of Hollywood. I think in years past, franchises were a big thing as well. It's easy to forget the crap.
Yeah.
So like you look back in the 90s and it's like, yeah, Jurassic Park was great, but like there was still lots of garbage then. It's
sure. And here I'll throw another franchise out right before we finish up real quick here. Another franchise out that you'll agree with that has the same issue that we love for the same issues that I love the Fast and Furious franchise, and it doesn't fall, is the Mission Impossible movies.
Oh yeah.
We get them once every couple of years.
Yeah.
It's just Tom Cruise with a little bit of Jeremy Renner and a couple other guys that don't make a bunch of movies every year.
Okay, Simon Pegg's in a lot, and so is Ving Rhames.
Is he?
Sorry, in a lot of those movies.
No, that's what I mean,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
But I'm not overexposed to them.
Yeah,
Just Jeremy Renner maybe, but Jeremy Renner's not even overexposed in his own movies.
Correct.
So Mission Impossible does everything I need it to do in a franchise. It stays in its own lane. Yeah. It's not overly ambitious is what it's tried to do, as opposed to what it actually does. Like, it's overly ambitious in the way of within its own stuff. Like, the stunts are going to get more and more and more, but stunts is its literal thing. It's not going to be more than that.
Sure. So I guess what we're summarizing is we'll just have another episode chalked up to praise of the altar of Tom Cruise.
I'll work on his lawn.
Good, yeah. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. So basically, if you're Tom Cruise, you're bulletproof, and if you're Chris Pratt, I guess
we'll see. If Tom Cruise is going to be in this Doctor Strange movie, then I'm going to have to change my tune just a touch because now I'm overexposed.
No, he's unbeatable. yeah, let us know if we got this right, if we missed any real stinkers of franchise. I'm sure we did, but please let us know and tell us how wrong we are about The Last Jedi, in Brendan in particular.
Yeah, give me all of your wrong Last Jedi takes and tell me how much you love Prometheus.
Yeah. Also, let us know if you're willing to come out and be on an objectively wrong segment of the podcast. Yeah. Thanks, guys. We'll see you later in the week.